Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happen throughout the week. Big shout out to the supporters over at patreon.com/hiphopnow. The link is in the description of this episode. If you would like to become a supporter of this podcast, a producer of this podcast, a person who has some real input on what content comes to this podcast, hit the link in the description of this episode. There's a number of different tiers to help. There's also free tiers. Shout out to the people at the bottom. If you're watching this on video, past and present, Patreon supporters, you know, they basically got it to video form, y'all. I mean, there was a time where people were asking me to do video, and I was like, nah, chill. Nobody want to do all that work. And here we are. On the road to 500 subscribers. I think we're around 430 something. So still got a long ways to go. But honestly, the amount of people, which is above 50%, that click play on these videos, that watch these videos, are not really subscribed. So if you are a fan of what you're hearing, and you like what you're hearing, and you want to support, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 500 and eventually to 1,000 for the uninitiated. Big shout out to those people who have already tuned in. Last week, I did a series, a best of series, 3 episodes breaking down 3 top 5s that typically I just have trouble committing to. But I said, you know what? I need to do lists. People like lists. People like talking about their top 5 best this and that. So I figured it was about time I just officially do some of that stuff here. And maybe it's something I will revisit annually, you know, as the spring into the summer hits, you know, I'll revisit those. And if it's changed, I'll do another one. But if not, I'll let you know on the podcast. So that's top 5 best albums, top 5 best MCs, and top 5 beats within hip hop history. They're my lists, but definitely share your list because there are a number of people who are in the comments sharing their lists. Check it out. It was a pretty dope time to put that together. And I got a couple of other lists. Those were the main lists. We're going to get into the unique lists a little bit later. And I'll do that during the summer. Also, Tale of the Tapes will be back. I did about 12 episodes of that. Playlist is also on the channel. So there's a lot of content for you to just dive in and just hear my perspective, jump in the comment section, give your perspective. I read all the comments. I typically reply to them. So do that and we'll be good. Now, let's get right into the business of this. It is now June of 2024. If you're watching this in June of 2025, you already know what happened. Get your punk ass out of here. You from the future, okay? You already know what happened. But if you are here with me right now in 2024, June usually says, okay, what are the best hip hop projects of the year so far? So it kind of gives you a roadmap into, you know, what could be in my top 5 or what are the best. Will this list change dramatically in the second half of the year? There's a number of albums that are on the way, particularly this year, that we haven't even heard yet, right? Like Pete Rock and Common, right? Nas and Premier, from what we heard, you know, a couple of other rumored joints, and maybe a Kendrick Lamar album. So in a lot of ways, we got some stuff on the way. What I like to do is over the course of the year, because this is a news podcast, hip hop news, I've incorporated my impressions / kind of quasi reviews into each episode. So there are a number of albums on here that I reviewed on the podcast throughout this past 6 months. And then there are a few that I didn't review, but I did listen to them. Well, I didn't review them on the show, but I listened to them. I reviewed them in real life. That didn't appear on the show, but I've listened to them. I probably like them or whatever, and I feel like it deserves to be the best. Now, I'm not going to say what's my top 5 of the year so far because honestly, it's just up in the air. For example, there's some albums that I've reviewed and I was kind of meh on, like, they wasn't bad, they were good, but yeah, whatever. And at this point in time, when you're looking at because my cap is like 20 albums, 20 projects, and that's it. I'm not gonna have a list that has 30 or 40 like I used to do back in the days. I just would do everything, but kind of narrow it down to 15 to 20 for the most part at this point in time. And there's just some albums there is like, yo, that's one of the best of the year if we're looking at what's out right now. So I'm going to run through it. I'll say a few words here and there depending on the project to let you know some of the things I think about them. But if you are a person who only heard a couple of projects or none, and you just want to know what's the best of the best that's out there so far, this is the podcast for you. This is the episode for you. This is happening a good maybe 7 minutes into the joint. So you can just tell your friends or put it in the comment section if people don't want to hear all that other talking, because we're about to get into it. Let's go. First up, Mac Hami, Rich Ass Haitian. I I'm not gonna lie. I'm not the biggest Mac Hami fan, but I do like when he embraces not like he's never done it, but he uh presents and embraces his Haitian heritage to a T, combined with the way he rhymes, type of stuff he raps about, along with that Haitian flavor. I kind of dig it. So I think that's one of the best albums this year. An album I just reviewed not that long ago, Rhapsody, Please Don't Cry. Like I said in my review, it's a very good album. I feel like the production is on point. I feel like the concept is on point. There's a few songs here and there I don't really mess with, but I will say this definitely won't make my top 5 because it's just not an album that has a lot of replay value for me personally. But there are a lot of people who connect with the messages within this album and her journey that will really, really vibe with this. And maybe they don't even mess with half of the other stuff I'm about to name. So this is probably like their number 1 or top 5. But as far as production and bars and how it's put together, it's a good album. One of the best of the year, but it's definitely not gonna make my top 5 because it don't have any real staying power, unlike her other album, Eve, which was one of my top 5 of the year when that dropped. So Slum Village, Fun. This is in the best of the year because it is just that. It is literally a different vibe. It's a familiar Slum Village sound, and I'm talking about even back to the Dilla days. The sound is familiar, the rhyming schemes are familiar, and the music itself is just so different from everything else that's out all the time. Like whether it's underground is boom bap to death with the same kind of drumless beats or whatever, or it's like, trap or whatever, is right in the pocket of something different. And I like it. Razkaz, RJ Payne, and Havoc, Gutter, Havoc on the beats. If you want bars, you want boom bap, you want Method Man with another stellar feature, Gutter is what you should listen to. Is very dope project. One of the best of the year so far. Rome Streets and Wavy, Buck 50 EP. There's a couple of EPs on this list. Rome Streets, I like this better than the last thing he dropped. I think for a nice quick EP, a little boom bap, a little, gangster rap or whatever you want to call it. hardcore hip hop, he got you. Hit Boy and Alchemist, Theodore and Andre EP. This was a 3-song EP. And when I tell you, it was on repeat for me when it came out. Like literally, I kept playing this joint over and over and over again. I wouldn't mind a full project from them. I know Hit Boy and Alchemist worked with Big Hit together on the album, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about give us a EP that's a little bit longer. You know what I'm saying? 7 joints. You know, that'd be cool. I don't even care if you take these 3 and the other one they did prior to this and just add a few to it. I'm good with that. But let's get a full project from these two. It sounds dope. Speaking of Alchemist, Alchemist and Oh No, Gangrene, the name of the project. Heads I win, tails you lose. This is taking you back to the production that most expect from Alchemist, and it's a pretty dope album. It's a solid album, so you should definitely check that out. Also, what we got here, let's move a little quicker. Apathy, Connecticut Casual, Chapter 2. I don't think I've ever heard a whack album from Apathy. I'm not lying. It's a very dope album, and I think in a lot of ways it will wind up being slept on at the end of the year. But if you're here with me right now, it's not slept on. Go press play. Uh, J. Cole. J. Cole might delete later. Look, before he apologized, the weakest thing on this project was the 7-minute diss record towards Kendrick. It really was. Beyond that, everything else I thought was fire. So even though I didn't like him quitting the battle, and ultimately we like how it turned out, you know, with him out of it, I can't take nothing away from what this project sound like to me prior to the apology. The apology I shouldn't change my opinion on Mike Delete later because he apologized to Kendrick and took that song off. But I will say it's kind of difficult to hear some of that I'm number one GOAT talk, you know, when you go back and listen, because you're kind of like, are you? You didn't want the smoke. So you not the big 3, it's just the big he. We talking about K Dot. Next up, Benny the Butcher, Everybody Can't Go. Look, I was disappointed in this project, but I didn't feel like it was whack. I just felt like it would be better. And now, and this is no shade, but it's just the truth. I thought Conway's album was going to be better. And I feel like, nope, I like this Benny project better. And I've been listening to it more and more because he's one of my favorites. And it's not as bad as I thought it was. It's just that it wasn't what I anticipated, which was a much better album, but it's still a good album, still one of the best of the year. Earth Gang and Spillage Village, Robophobia, which is it's labeled as hip hop. And I get it today. There's a certain style that's now labeled as hip hop that comes very close to straight up singing, if you ask me. I like Earth Gang. I've liked them since their debut, where they was rapping a little bit more. They could rap, they could do the sing-songy thing. So it's a vibe. It's some variety for your listening experience. Next up, Master Ace and Marco Polo, uh, Richmond Hill. I really love the first project they did, or the project prior to this called Brooklyn. I think a Brooklyn Story or something like that. And this is more like a sequel. This project has a lot of skits just like the last one, which I don't necessarily care for. But when you get into the music, the songs, Master Ace and Marco Polo, they just don't miss. So if you like those two guys, you like Marco Polo beats, you like Master Ace, who's still in the pocket, he don't get enough flowers for being a cat who was down with the Juice Crew, and he does not sound dated when he's rapping. He's continued to be consistent and put out great music, and this is another example of that. I'm doing pretty good on time. I Am God and Klepto, Bloodstained Suede 2. Now, this one, the first volume of, or the first project from these two, I thought the bars and the music didn't necessarily mesh as much as I kind of thought it would. But I think with this one, they made it happen. They made it work. Whatever it was that wasn't connecting with me on the first version of this project, this one connected with me big time because I was like, yo, these beats fit. The bars are crazy. Like I Am God is crazy with the bars. If you haven't heard of him, he's from Chi-Towns, from Chicago. Check him out. Uh, next up, an album that I wasn't excited for it. I didn't expect too much from it, but when I heard it, I was like, this is way better than I anticipated. And that's Talib Kweli and Madlib's Liberation 2. This album is what the Black Star, I was gonna say every black version of hip hop ever, but the what the Black Star album should have sounded like. Excuse me, not the original. I'm talking about the one that came out with not that long ago with Mos Def or Yasin Bey rhyming in the most disinterested tone I've ever heard in my life, which is tough to ding him on, pause, because everybody likes all these other disinterested rappers. But I mean, it's Mos Def, man. He gave us music where he was a little bit more vibrant. So it's tough to listen to him rap like that. But on this particular project, Madlib's beats are on point. I love the concept. This is a conscious album. So there's a lot of conscious themes within the skits, within the songs, and it's dope. And right now, if you ask me, incredibly, criminally slept on. So if you like Talib Kweli, or if you like this music, not the man, we're not talking about social media and all that stuff, but if you just like the music he's put out and you like Madlib and the type of production he's capable of, you'll like this album. A few more to go. The Dog Pound. We All We Got. When I tell you, this album dropped, the first single, Smoke Up, I think that's the name of it. I was like, ooh, I'm feeling this, but I had no reason to believe that the rest of the album will be that good. This is on Death Row Records that Snoop Dogg owns now. And when I tell you this is pure West Coast, it's fun, it's perfect for the summertime. It thumps, it's smooth, it's everything. And then it ends with um almost like a Stranded on Death Row, if you remember from the Chronic, posse cut. And when I say, I don't know if it's verse of the year, but it is so good to hear the Lady of Rage over a Premier beat. All of them killed it. RBX, surprisingly to me, because I wasn't the biggest fan of RBX, also did a dope job on that. But the standout is Lady of Rage, starting it off like she killed it, man. But this album, I'm telling y'all, man, it might creep into my top 5 because when it dropped, and even now, it dropped because it dropped not that long ago from the recording of this podcast. All I kept doing was repeat, repeat. It was just like perfect for the weather, at least out here on the East Coast, like settling into warmer temperatures in summertime coming up. Like it's hot. And to have that album drop, it just felt perfect. A little bit of nostalgia in that if you a fan of West Coast hip hop, that West Coast sound. So Ransom and Harry Fraud, Lavish Misery. This is just bars. I think I don't usually like Harry Fraud's production. Well, let me say I won't say like or dislike. It's not that I dislike it. It just doesn't really do anything for me. But I think these particular beats mixed with Ransom's bar work and hooks and these songs, and this is another EP. Um, I think it just works out like perfectly. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, "Yep, if nothing else bumps it out of my top 5, it will probably be there at the end of the day or at the end of the year." Dave East and Scram Jones, For the Love. Listen, I could tell y'all straight up, this is it's gonna be hard to bump this one out of my top five. You know why? Because it's so different from what even Dave East usually does that I think that's why I like it more. It's a better use of his talents than him to constantly drop the same kind of joints. Like he put out a new project not that long ago, and I think it was dope. I think it was cool, but I think For the Love with Scram Jones is better. It has a 90s sitcom, black sitcom aesthetic, mainly Martin and like Living Single. They even got a song called Living Single. And it's all about relationships, but not in a real sappy way. And a lot of the production samples a lot of familiar melodies and sounds that, again, like sampling the Living Single intro, for a song. It's just dope and it's perfect. And to me, if you're like me, the type to not want to, like, if your top five is all the same style of rap, then I don't know if you would like this, because you may be looking for the same kind of sound and this is far from it. But if you're a person who, you like your boom bap, you like your hardcore hip hop, but you also like a little variety, this is like the perfect palate cleanser between listening to Ransom bars and like what I was saying about I Am God. Even though I Am God's second project probably has more of a smooth feel than usual than typical from him, but this is right in the pocket. So For the Love, Davies, Scram Jones, and two more to round off the best of 2024 so far. And that is Shay Noir's The Color of Chocolate, Volume 1, an EP. Telling y'all, this came out early in 2024, and I haven't stopped listening to it. Like, I just repeat it over and over and over and over again. I know she got an album on the way, or at least a volume two, and I'm ready. Because at this point, I feel like with Shay Noir, excuse me, when she first dropped, I wasn't the biggest fan, and I think because I couldn't find anything unique about her or unique about the production, and it just didn't. I just didn't gravitate towards it. And then she had one EP a couple years ago where I was like, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. And for those who don't know, she's also a producer. And since then, she hasn't disappointed yet. And I hate to put the two against each other, but I feel like the way I felt about Rhapsody as an MC, her newest album kind of brought me down a peg, but Shay Noir is rising on my list. So that's that. Excuse me. And lastly, Hus Kingpin and Ninth Wonder, Super Gold. I said, you could probably go through that list that I just said and say, well, he said a couple joints that's in his top five so far. This one, I ain't even gonna hold you. This one is in my top five until something knocks it out. And it's gonna be tough to do that because I'm not the biggest fan of Hus Kingpin. I think he's hit or miss sometimes. I feel like sometimes he's on autopilot the way he raps as far as his flow and subject matter. And I feel like this project with Ninth Wonder, because of the different looks and sound, it brought out more from him lyrically, or it just matched with his flow and what he talks about perfectly compared to what he's done in the past. So there you have it. Those, I think, are the best albums and EPs of 2024 so far. Uh, what I typically do, for those who like it, there is a playlist in the link of this description. It's on Apple Music. It's called Hip Hop Now Podcast Best of 2024 so far. Does feature music from albums that are not necessarily within this list, but the songs are featured on the playlist. So the playlist is extensive. I've been curating it since January, and I'll continue to add songs as I come across dope hip hop throughout the rest of the year. It's available, obviously, on iOS devices if you got an iPhone or iPad or Mac, but also if you have an Android, Apple Music is also available. I believe there's a free version, so you can still listen to the playlist. You might have to listen to ads here and there, but what's 30 seconds or whatever, man? I look up in the sky for 30 seconds, then get back. But you could just listen to this joint, hit shuffle, whatever you want, and check out some of the best songs. Maybe you'll find some of the music you like in there. Maybe listening to that playlist. You'll definitely get an example of every album I talked about, because one song from each album I mentioned is featured on that playlist. So shout out to everybody watching. Follow me on social media. My tag on every social media page is at Vegas World INC. Please know that not only is this an audio podcast for which you can subscribe and review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, but also available right here on YouTube. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers, so if you like what you saw, you know what I'm saying, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on the episode, comment, what are your best albums? Even give us 5 or 10 best albums of the year so far. Leave it in the comment section below. Maybe there's a project that you heard that you think I should check out because it wasn't mentioned. Leave that in the comment section below. But most importantly, when you watch this podcast, and if you like it, share it with other people who love hip hop and are curious about what's hot and what's out and what's what, because that is the whole purpose of this content. Until next time, y'all, I'm not a critic, I'm a fan. Peace.